Hello, this is a pre-recorded webinar. I'm Alex, a dyspraxic occupational therapist, and I'm excited to share some strategies for managing your energy with you today. In the next few minutes, we'll start to explore a few strategies for beginners, including energy accounting. And although today is oriented around dyspraxia, all of the tips and support will be helpful for a multitude of different people as well. Before we begin, let me share a little bit about myself. So I'm an independent occupational therapist who works with my fellow neurodivergent adults. This often is dyspraxics, autistics and ADHDers, and I am dyspraxic, dyslexic, autistic myself, and most of my work is based on my lived experience. I remember the day that I realised that my constant fatigue wasn't me being lazy or unmotivated, like so many of us are led to believe. And this was a huge light bulb moment for me, one of many that led me to found Navigate Neurodiversity Occupational Therapy, a space that I dedicate to supporting my fellow neurodivergent adults to thrive and to change this narrative that's so wrong. My personal journey of energy management has been filled with ups and downs. Energy management, although a wonderful tool, can be quite difficult and takes a lot of perseverance. But I feel it's one of the most valuable things to have in your toolkit. And just having a multitude of strategies in your toolkit that you can pull on can be incredibly empowering. In my free time, I really enjoy spending time with animals, blogging about local restaurants and cafes, and painting. Hopefully today I will start to help you build that toolkit. So let's start by understanding why dyspraxia might impact our energy levels. There are many factors that influence our energy, but 3 of the ones I wanted to touch on today were physical, cognitive, and emotional. Physically, dyspraxia means that we often have to work harder to do fairly simple things that other people might find really easy and not take up much energy at all. For example, buttoning a shirt or using cutlery can require intense concentration and a lot of effort because we're having to coordinate ourselves and use our fine motor skills. This extra physical exertion and often subsequent frustration really adds up throughout the day. Cognitively, our brains are constantly working in overdrive. We're not just doing the tasks, but we're planning how to do them, often focusing really intensely to try and avoid mistakes and often having to redo things. This level of effort is exhausting. A level of tiredness that perhaps a neurotypical person might experience after a really intense day of concentration. I think that's often our baseline. Of course, emotionally, being dyspraxic can be stressful. We might feel anxious about potential mistakes that we might make or embarrassed about challenges like dropping things. And this emotional toll can drain our energy reserves too. And of course, we often experience ableism from other people as well as internalized ableism too. Let's think about a little example. So many of us have had to assemble a bit of IKEA furniture at one time or another. And what might be a fairly straightforward task for other people might turn into a 3-hour ordeal for us. You might have to carefully reread the instructions loads of times, focus intensely on each and every step, and deal with a lot of frustration of dropping screws and misaligning parts. And by the end, if you're anything like me, you're physically tired from the task itself, mentally exhausted from all the concentration required, and emotionally drained from the pure stress of the process. And this is a typical energy depleting scenario for many of us dyspraxics. And I often feel that just being a neurodivergent person in a really neurotypically oriented world is exhausting in itself. Now that we understand why we often feel so very depleted and how valid that is, let's talk about a helpful concept called energy accounting, which was originally developed by an autistic clinical psychologist, Maya Tudor. This approach views energy as a limited resource, similar to how money is, and that we must manage our resources throughout the day, just like budgeting finances. And we can also budget our energy to try and maintain our well-being. We all have a finite amount of energy each day, and it's important to recognise how we use it. Every activity either drains or restores our energy. But it's essential to remember that energy is not just the physical energy, like walking or running or lifting or hoovering, for example. Many people also forget that other forms of energy impact us. These might be things like cognitive, emotional, and social energy. For example, cognitive energy is used when we're problem solving, learning, reading, even processing things that we're watching on TV. Emotional energy is often used when we're in emotionally intense situations, and social energy comes into play during interactions with others, whether that's at work or in personal settings. These less physical types of energy are often overlooked but significantly affect how drained or energized we feel by the end of the day or the end of the week. Let's just take a moment to reflect on your typical day. What are your major energy drains? Is it something in your morning routine? A mentally challenging task at work, or a social interaction that takes lots and lots of effort? And now consider what activities replenish your energy. Perhaps it's a calming activity like rewatching your favourite TV show, spending time outdoors, cuddling a pet, or just quiet time alone. Just understanding what drains and restores your energy across all the different types, like the physical, the cognitive, the emotional, and the social, is the first step in energy accounting. By becoming more aware of these patterns, you can start making more conscious decisions about how to allocate your energy more effectively. For instance, I know that for me, video calls, which is a big part of my work, drain my energy a lot. They're not just physically demanding, but they're cognitively and socially demanding as well. Staying focused and processing a lot of information in real time and maintaining engagement leaves me mentally and socially exhausted. However, spending time with a pet, having a little daydream looking out the window and listening to my favourite playlist all help to recharge my energy. Just recognising this pattern helps me to structure my day better and embed some of these energising activities. Another powerful way to use energy accounting is to reflect on past days and plan for future days. At the end of each day, you could take a moment just to think about activities that drained your energy the most across all the different energy types, and any that helped you recharge, whether tasks or interactions that left you feeling particularly depleted, and what restorative activities could you schedule in to balance those drains in the future. By identifying these patterns over time, you can start planning your future days more effectively. Now let's think about how to do an actual energy account. So the first thing that you're going to want to do is make a list of all the activities that you might do in the day. These include the physical ones like cooking and errands, but also the cognitive, emotional, and social ones like meetings, emotions, and socialising. Once you've listed all your tasks, the next step is to assign each one an energy value. And you're going to want to consider all the forms of energy again here. It doesn't have to be precise. You just want to aim for a general sense of how draining or energising each activity is for you. You might want to rate it on a scale from -10, being very draining, to +10, very energising. And that will help you visualise which tasks consume the most energy and which ones help you to recover. So let me demonstrate with a little before and after. So on the screen here, you'll see a Saturday. Now, of course, I've not listed out everything that I would do on that day. I've just made a mini version to put on the screen because it would be too big otherwise. And you can see there are a lot of negative numbers on that pink side on the left. And they represent the tasks that drain significant amounts of energy for me. Although I do have some nice, positive, energy-giving tasks on the right, things that I've done, like watching my comfort TV programme and colouring, it's clear that there's a discrepancy between the two. So what I've done is I've added up the total from each column. I've got minus 50 energy that I've withdrawn, and I've only replenished 28. That means that I'm in the minuses for sure after that day. So it's clear that I was spending more energy than I was gaining. By having this visual representation, it should help you to reflect on past days and feel validated in why you might have been exhausted, but also plan for future days to try and make sure you have a more balanced energy account. Now on this slide, you can see a slightly more balanced version here. So what I've done is reduce the energy drain significantly for more demanding tasks like doing the food shop and cooking by ordering a food shop online and using adaptive kitchen equipment in the kitchen, such as different grips on my knives and sitting down to cook. That's helped me save a lot of energy. I've also delegated tasks which help conserve energy even more. By making these adjustments, I've added more recovery activities as well and balanced the energy draining tasks with activities that will recharge me. Simple changes like microwaving my lunch or adding in sensory activities can help maintain my energy levels throughout the day without leaving me feeling absolutely exhausted. The key takeaway here is that creating an energy budget lets you see where you might be spending too much energy and helps you plan in more energy deposits, things that are going to replenish your energy. This process should help you become more mindful of how you use and recover energy. It's important to remember that your energy budget will be unique to you, and what's energizing or draining for one person might be different for another. The key is to be honest with yourself and keep track of the patterns, and adjust as you learn more about your personal energy use and what's helpful for you. By using energy accounting in this way, you'll be able to plan your days more effectively and hopefully avoid big energy crashes, keeping your energy levels more balanced over time. Another way to simplify your energy budgeting is by using simply red and green instead of assigning energy values to each activity. You could simply mark them as red for energy takers and green for energy givers. This method gives you a quick overview of your planned day or planned week. When you look at your schedule, check for large chunks of red, representing heavy energy expenditure. If you see too much red, that's a signal you need to add more green, whether it's breaks or restful activities or energy boosters. The goal is to avoid long stretches of energy draining tasks and make sure your day or week has enough balance to keep you from feeling overwhelmed and depleted. It's just a simple visual way to reflect on your energy use and adjust your plans. So you can see here that the Monday that I've roughly written out has a nice spread of red and green, whereas the Tuesday only really has one green. And just a reminder again that although I might enjoy walking my dog, it actually takes a lot of energy from me, so it's definitely a red. Whereas listening to calming music only gives me energy, it doesn't take any. Now that we understand the basics of energy accounting and you've got a new tool in your toolkit, we can discuss some other practical strategies to help you manage energy. These are all based on the concept of pacing, but there's a lot more detail to it than we'll go into in this session. This will just be a couple of the basic core concepts. So first, we want to think about breaking tasks into smaller steps, and this reduces the cognitive load and makes the task feel less overwhelming as well. So for instance, instead of saying to myself or writing on my calendar, today I'm going to clean the house, I might break that down into just vacuum the living room or clean the bathroom sink. This allows me to tackle tasks in smaller, more manageable energy chunks. I'd also want to intersperse some rest breaks between each of those mini tasks as well. Whereas if I just put clean the house, I might be tempted to keep going until the whole house is clean without taking energy breaks. Next, we want to try and optimise our environment. This might mean reducing the sensory input that you find draining. So for me, I find noise-cancelling headphones in busy environments and adjusted lighting in my workspace helps significantly. Assistive technology can also be really helpful to minimise energy use. This might be doing things like voice-to-text software instead of typing, or using a smartwatch for reminders to take breaks. Have an experiment with it and see what works best for you. And finally, we want to prioritise self-care. It's not selfish, it's necessary. That might be regular exercise, even if that's just a small stretch. That can boost our energy levels. We also might want to consider doing things like mindfulness practice, but it doesn't have to be that. It can be anything that is self-care for you. For me, it might not be mindfulness. I'm not the biggest fan in my personal life. It doesn't help me significantly. I much prefer listening to a podcast about something that makes me really happy, which is dogs. So for me, having a little bit of time carved out each day to listen to that podcast, often while I'm doing something like applying skincare, which I find really soothing and therapeutic, is really helpful for me and really important. You can also consider energy conservation. So this is going to be being strategic about the way you use the energy that you do have. So we're going to want to prioritise only the essential tasks. So we might use our energy account to help us in this process. And it's okay if not everything gets done every day. It's really important to be kind to ourselves about this. Learning to say no is really crucial too. I found this hard at first. I wanted to prove that I could do everything, and I often wanted to please those around me too. But setting boundaries can be incredibly liberating. It's okay to decline invitations. If you need to conserve your energy, that's more important. We also want to incorporate planned, regular rest periods into our day. That doesn't necessarily mean napping. It might just be 5 minutes of deep breathing between tasks or a quiet cup of tea. For me, it's staring out of the window and daydreaming, watching the birds for a couple of minutes, or getting lost in a little bit of colouring. You have to find what feels restful for you. Generally, that's going to be something that lasts a couple of minutes, up to maybe half an hour. Any longer than that, and we might find it difficult to restart what we were doing before. You might consider using something like the Pomodoro technique, where you work in 25-minute blocks followed by 5-minute breaks. That can be helpful for some people too. So as we wrap up, remember that energy management is a very personal journey. What works for one person may not work for another. It's important that we're patient with ourselves as we try to figure out our own energy patterns and effective strategies. To recap the key points, we want to understand what factors deplete our energy levels and what factors help to replenish them. We want to use energy accounting to visualise our energy usage on a daily basis or across the week using the red and green planner. We might want to think about breaking tasks down into smaller, more manageable chunks and interspersing rest breaks. And we want to prioritise self-care, energy conservation, and setting boundaries. I hope that you enjoyed the webinar today, and I hope that you found something helpful that you can add to your toolkit to help you start your energy management journey. I'd love to hear your feedback on the webinar. You're welcome to do so by popping me an email. My email will be on the screen and my socials are up there too. To go give me a follow on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, whichever you fancy, to see more of the work that I'm doing. And I often do videos and posts about top tips as well, of things that have helped me. I also do provide one-to-one support, and I have groups and workshops, social groups, webinars, resources, all kinds of things coming in the near future. So you're welcome to join my mailing list to hear more about this. You can find the link to that on my website or in the links in my bio on social media. Thank you so much for listening today. It's been an absolute pleasure.